Hey everybody, it's Pastor Ben here. Just wanted to bring you a quick message. So my daughter, she seems to be afraid of a lot of things. She just turned 3 years old, but she seems to be afraid of a lot of things. When she gets too many people around her, one of the things she does is she comes and she hides under my leg. Like literally, she'll just grab my legs and she'll hide under them. And the other day, we're laying in bed now, I'm putting her to sleep, and she looks at me, she goes, "Dad, can I have some water?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go get you some water." So I go downstairs and I get her some water. And as I'm walking down to get her some water, I said, "I'll be right back." And I come back up the stairs and I hear singing. I'm like, "What is that?" And I hear, "When I am afraid, I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you." And here she's singing this song. And I'm walking up the stairs and I get to her and she looks at me and I said, "Were you afraid?" She said, "Yeah. And when I was afraid, I sang that song." And that song is actually a song that she knows from a Bible verse. It's a Bible verse. "When I am afraid, I will trust in you." And it's from the Psalms. And so here, there's a lot of different ways that people react to fear, isn't there? She comes and she hides under my legs, but then she was by herself, laying in her bed upstairs while in the dark, while I go down and get her some water. And so she's singing this song to Jesus to remind herself that she is not afraid. You know, the Bible talks about this, about how people have different kinds of faith. Different kinds of faith. In Matthew, we're here in Matthew 8. Matthew 8, verses 5 through 13. This is great. You'll appreciate this, I think. "When he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, 'Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly.' And he said to him," Jesus is speaking, "he says to him, 'I will come and heal him.'" Listen to this. "But the centurion replied, 'Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed.'" Verse 9, "For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it." And when Jesus heard this, he marveled, and he said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And the centurion said to Jesus, "Go, let it be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment. It's kind of interesting here. Jesus perceives that this centurion is going to want him to come with him. He's going to want him to come with him to his house to perform this miracle. But the centurion surprises everybody around Jesus because what he says to him is, "Hey, I don't need you to come. All you have to do is speak." And Jesus says he marvels at his faith because that centurion knew who Jesus was. He understood how big and how powerful Jesus was. And so that was not an issue for him. And so he says, "You don't have to come. All you have to do is speak." And he bases this off of, he says, "You have authority." He said, "I have authority. I tell my soldiers where to go and they go there." He said, "I tell them where to go and they go. And I say, 'Come back,' and they come back." And so he says to Jesus, "I know you have authority over these things. And so if you say it, it will be done." And so what kind of amazing faith is that? Is that the kind of faith that you and I have? Do we have faith that when we ask Jesus of something and it is his will, that he will accomplish it? I feel like sometimes we need more, right? Sometimes we need more, but we shouldn't be embarrassed by that. Look at this. Continue with me here. We move over to Matthew 9, starting in verse 18. "While he was saying these things to them, behold, a ruler came in and knelt before him, saying, 'My daughter has just died.'" Now listen to what he says. "But come, lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus rose and followed him with his disciples. And so we have a different thing here. When this guy comes up to Jesus, he doesn't just say, "Speak it." He says, "Come with me. Come back to my house. If you come with me, things will be done. And so I can, honestly, I can commiserate with this guy, right? Not everyone has that faith that the centurion had. Not everyone acts that way. Sometimes we feel like we need a little bit more. And we're like, Jesus, I believe in you. I believe you're going to do it, but you got to show me something. And so he's like, won't you come with me? Don't let me feel alone. I need you to come with me. And it continues. It continues because we go to a third person here. A third person here. Verse 20, and behold, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. For she said to herself, if I only touch his garment, I will be made well. And Jesus turns around and sees her, and he says, take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well. And instantly the woman was made well. And when Jesus came to the ruler's house, now we're back to the second man, the man that said, come with me to my house. We're back to his story. Verse 23, and when Jesus came to the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making a commotion, he said, go away, for this girl is not dead, but sleeping. This is a story I tell my daughter, and she loves this story. And this part's kind of comical if you think about it, because he's like, hey, she's fine. She's not dead. She's asleep. And everyone around him is like, what are you talking about? Like, this is insane. Jesus is like, don't worry about it. I got this. And it even says, and they laughed at him. Verse 25, but when the crowd had been put aside, he went in, took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report of this went through all that district. And so I actually heard a sermon on this when I was in Bible college, I'm talking about 10 years ago now. And it stuck with me, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Because what you see here is you see three different people with three different levels of faith, if you will. You have the centurion who looks at Jesus and says, I know who you are. If you speak, it will be done because you have authority. Then you have Jairus, and Jairus, he understands who Jesus is, but he wants a little bit more. And so Jairus says to Jesus, I know who you are. I know you can do something about it, but I need you to come with me and come see my daughter. You have to come with me. And then you have the woman who says, I need to touch him. I need to touch him. I need to feel him. I need it to be tangible. And so sometimes when we look at people or even our own faith, we start to say, hey, they don't have enough faith. They don't have enough faith, and that's the problem. If they just had more faith. But this story shows us something else. Because think about it. The centurion had the most faith, didn't he? He did. He said, I know who you are. Just speak it and it will be done. And he got what he asked for. And Jairus, he had probably the least amount of faith. He said, you have to come with me. You have to come with me. And then you have to go touch my daughter. And then she'll be okay. But he got what he wanted, didn't he? When he was there, his daughter gets healed. And then you have the woman, and she says, I got to touch Jesus. I got to have this tangible thing where I can hold on to him and so I can see and know and feel that it's done. And so we might look at their faith and go, whoa, they didn't have as good as faith. But that's not what Jesus does. Jesus looks at all three of these individuals, and he says, you came to the right place. And your prayers, your desires that you have, they will be answered because they are my will. That part has to be there. It has to be his will. And so now we move over to Hebrews 11. Move to Hebrews 11. It's the faith chapter. And it has this section here that I think really goes a long way into finishing this off well. Into finishing it off well. I probably should have put a thing in my Bible so I could get there faster. But all right, here we are. Hebrews 11, verses 1 through 3. Now faith, we're talking about faith. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for. It's the assurance of things hoped for. The conviction of things not seen. For by it the people of old received their condemnation. By faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of the things that are visible. And so we have this here in Hebrews 11 where it's talking about what faith truly is. And it mentions that faith is this hope for something, this assurance. I believe that it's going to happen even though I can't see it. And so wherever you are today, when you come to Christ and you ask him for something and you believe it and you ask for it, and it has to be his will, and it's his will, it will be done. And so if you're going to God right now and you're saying, God, increase my faith, that's an okay prayer to pray. That's an okay prayer to pray. You can ask that. And I love this about Jesus. We see those different levels of faith there, but all three of them have their prayers answered because all three of them went to the right person. And so if you find yourself fearful, if you find yourself afraid, go to the right person. And that person's name is Jesus. He sees you, he knows you, he loves you, and he's listening. Don't waste your opportunity. Go to him right now. And if you feel like you have a small faith, that's okay, because he answers all three people's prayers because it was his will. So ask in his name.